Alright, so what is a complex adaptive system? So I want you to think about a butterfly. So say you're a butterfly, right? And you wake up and you're fluttering around and you decide, oh, I'm going to pollinate this flower. And then you go back and you're just doing your thing and you go right back to bed and you go to sleep and you wake up and you do the same thing the next day. Now, that would be a very linear thing, right? You do the same thing over and over again. Well, that's not what a complex adaptive system is. A complex adaptive system is multiple agents. So we have, right, the butterflies, we have plants, we have mushrooms, we have all sorts of things. Look around, everything's an agent. So all those agents are interacting with one another and they are working in this very complex and connective system. That's not linear, but rather the butterflies actually, if you see, they're flying all around and they're pollinating a bunch of different flowers, and those flowers and those plants are giving food back to them. So that's how that works.
None of the agents you see here exist alone. The fact that they're not in isolation allows them to work together, creating an emergent behavior. Here, the emergent behavior is that there's a successful ecosystem with all the plants and animals are able to thrive together.
Usually the way that humans interact with the environment is with a mindset of optimization. So let's say we wanted a medicinal garden like we have here. Typically, when we would build a medicinal garden, we would take everything that currently exists and we would demolish it. All of this forest, it would all be gone because we want maximum yield for all of our input. That is not what we did here because optimization does not create resilience.
So when we talk about resilience, we're talking about a complex adaptive system's ability to respond to changes, to adversity, in a way in which the structure and the function of the ecosystem won't be compromised and will not reach a place or a threshold in which that system completely changes into something else. And it's no longer, a forest and a garden. So is this complex adaptive system actually that resilient? Well, we think it is, because if you look over here, you have a forest, right? And so this forest acts as many different things. As we were talking about, it acts as a habitat for all the butterflies here, for example. But it also, not only does that, it acts as a reserve. So say something happens to the garden. Say, I don't know, there's a drought or something, right? And this ecosystem becomes a lot more vulnerable to the temperature. Well, you would still have this entire forest. Yes, it might be affected, but it also has the ability to respond to it and adapt to it, like we say with complex adaptive systems. Whereas without that reserve of a forest, and say this entire area was just a garden, then the entire garden and the entire area would die. So we think that because that these two ecosystems are interacting with one another, it helps this whole entire system be more resilient.
So the beautiful thing about resilient systems, as we mentioned before, is that it can adapt to all of these different changes while maintaining its original structure. So our resilient system is this garden interacting with this forest. So these different ecosystems will undergo certain pressures. For example, we could get a lot of rain. This was built to be a resilient system because it's built on a slope. So if you get too much rain, the rain will fall down and the plants won't drown from the extra water, but the forest can take up that water. It has the capacity to absorb all that extra water. Or say, for example, we get some really hot days. These plants can't handle direct heat too much. They're very delicate, they're small, they don't have a whole lot of cover, but we have this huge forest which provides a lot of heat absorbance and a lot of shade for the plants that are sitting here waiting for us to be harvested.
What makes up a complex adaptive system is feedback loops. There are a number of feedback loops here in this garden and forest. A really important one is pollination. So for example, a pollinator can come here to these flowers and it can pollinate them, helping to sustain itself while helping reproduce more flowers. more flowers will grow, encouraging more pollination and more pollinators. Another example of a feedback is photosynthesis and cell respiration. The plants can take in the sun and during photosynthesis, and they give off oxygen into the air.
So as 3 students who are studying this, we are also part of this huge, complex adaptive system. And every time that humans interact with the environment, we are also a part of this adaptive system. So this is us 3 signing off. Bye!